All right, let's talk about being a data-informed school leader. But what does that really mean? It's way more than just drowning in spreadsheets and dashboards, right? Today, we're going to break down what actually drives improvement, how we can cut through the noise and start leading with real clarity.
I love this quote. It hits home, doesn't it? You know the feeling? Everyone is working flat out, running from one thing to the next. The school is just humming with activity. But is any of it actually moving the needle? All that busyness, it doesn't automatically equal progress.
So how do we cut through all that noise and find that clarity? Well, it comes down to these three things. Forget about collecting more and more data. The real magic is in these three key principles: ethics, strategy, and action. It's about using data with integrity, sharing it with purpose, and most importantly, turning it into real, meaningful change.
Okay, and everything, and I mean everything, starts with ethics. This is the absolute foundation. Before we even dream of looking at a chart or making an action plan, we have got to be sure we're handling information responsibly. Get this wrong, and nothing else matters. It's the bedrock of a healthy school culture.
And let's be really clear about what we're talking about here. This isn't just abstract numbers on a page. Think about the kind of information we handle every single day. We're talking about student attainment, behavior records, attendance, safeguarding info, staff appraisals, parent complaints, even medical details. This is deeply personal, deeply human stuff. It's about people's lives, their struggles, their hopes.
So that leads to some pretty tough but essential questions we have to ask ourselves. Let's start with this one. Who actually sees this stuff? And more importantly, should they?
And then, how are we protecting it? Seriously, is it just sitting on some unsecured spreadsheet on a shared drive? Is it in a folder left open on a desk? Or are we treating it with the kind of Fort Knox security it actually deserves?
Now, let's move from process to people. This is huge. How do we talk about this data? Are our meetings professional and focused on support? Or, if we're being honest, do they sometimes drift into gossip? We have to be fiercely protective of the dignity of our students and our staff, always. And maybe this is the most important question of all. Is data a tool for improvement in your school, or is it a weapon for shaming people? Is your culture about growth and support, or is it about fear and judgment? Because the answer to that question changes everything. It determines whether people feel safe enough to be honest.
Because here's the bottom line, it's really this simple. When you mishandle data, you shatter trust. And once trust is gone, well, good luck trying to lead any kind of meaningful improvement. It's almost impossible.
All right, so once we've got that ethical foundation solid, what's next? Well, now we have to talk about how we communicate. How do we share what we're finding in a way that actually helps people, instead of just burying them in numbers?
We've all been on the receiving end of these, right? Reports that fall into one of two traps. You've got the super vague kind, big claims with basically zero evidence. And then there's the other extreme, the 50-page data dump that no one is ever going to read and that offers absolutely no insight. Yeah, neither of those work.
So this is about a fundamental shift in how we think. The people we report to, our boards, our leadership teams, they don't just need more data. They're drowning in data. They need insight. They don't want a summary. They want your interpretation. And this is the big one. They don't just need to hear about all the activity, all the busyness. They need to know what impact it's actually having. So how do you actually do that?
Well, it's surprisingly simple. Just make sure your reports answer these 6 questions. Think of this as your new template. A report that hits these 6 points is going to be clear, it's going to be honest, and it's going to be actionable. It tells the complete story, the good and the bad.
And that brings us to the third and final piece of the puzzle: action. Look, we can have the best ethical framework in the world and the most beautiful reports, but if nothing actually changes because of them, what's the point? This is where the rubber meets the road.
This right here, this is the question you have to ask, always. After every meeting, after every report, so what? What is actually going to be different in my school tomorrow because we know this? If the answer is nothing, then honestly, it was all just a waste of time.
And taking action doesn't have to mean some massive, overwhelming new initiative. Just pick one thing. Think of this as a menu of possible next steps. Maybe for you, the biggest win is to just audit the data you're already collecting and throw some of it out. Or maybe it's simplifying that crazy dashboard. Or maybe, just maybe, it's making a pact to stop making huge decisions based only on a gut feeling.
And it's really important to get this right. The goal here is not to become obsessed with data. We're not trying to turn ourselves into robots. Data is just a tool.
It's a tool to help us be more disciplined, more thoughtful, and, at the end of the day, just plain more effective at what we do.
Okay, let's bring this home and make it super practical. I want to give you a challenge. For you, right now, what are you going to do over the next 30 days to actually put some of this into practice?
Here's your roadmap. Just 6 questions. But don't just listen, actually think about them. What's the 1 or 2 things you know you have to improve? What will you literally start doing? And just as important, what will you stop doing? Who needs to be on board with you? And then define it. What does success actually look like in 30 days? I'm serious, write it down. It makes all the difference.
Because in the end, it all comes down to this. Of course you care. We all care. That's why we do this work. But caring on its own isn't enough. Real, lasting improvement happens when we channel that care into 3 disciplines. The discipline to look clearly at the evidence, the discipline to think deeply about what it really means, and then the courage to act on it. That right there is what true data-informed leadership is all about.